Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video about the phrase assumption hardens into fact and what that means, because it's pretty clear that this is a misunderstood aspect of the Neville Goddard part of manifesting. And I got this idea from the Neville Goddard beginners thread where somebody posted a question about this. So let me just set it up with that. This person posted a snippet from a study that had been published where groups of male and female friends were studied. And the researchers found that the male, you're not going to be surprised by this, the male parties were attracted to their female friends far more often than the female parties were attracted to their male friends. But both male and female subjects assumed that the other gender felt the same way that they did. So the women assumed that their male friends were not attracted to them, and the men assumed that their female friends were attracted to them. So I guess the point of this study was to prove that people in relationships can be viewing things completely differently from each other, which, okay. Not a big shocker there for me. I don't know about you. But basically, the person in the Neville Goddard thread was saying, so what's the deal? Assumptions are supposed to harden into fact. Why didn't the male party's assumption that the females were attracted to them harden into fact? Isn't that kind of like the whole point of this manifestation thing? And so I wanted to address this because, no, it's not. That's not the kind of assumption that hardens into fact. The assumption where you don't really know what's going to happen, but you're making your best guess based on past experience, or, just making an educated guess. That's just a guess that you're making without proof. That's not the assumptions hardened into fact that Neville Goddard is talking about. There's another definition of assume, and that is the one that Neville is talking about. And that definition is essentially to assume, as in to assume a role. So let's say you get a job as a manager somewhere. Today, you're just you. On Monday, you're going to assume the job of manager, where you take on all the responsibilities. You take on that persona. Essentially, you have to be the person in charge, managing people. It's to take on a role. That's what assumptions harden into fact means. As Neville says in all of his books, you imagine the best that you can be. Imagine yourself the greatest that you can be. Persist in that, and it will harden into fact. Your assumption will become your reality, meaning you will become that person, which I'm sure makes much more sense to you than just the idea that, I go to the bar every night and this guy comes in and has a drink, so I'm going to go there tonight and assume he's going to be there. Oh, he showed up because I assumed it. Like, this is just la la land. I don't even get where people came up with this. That's not what Neville was talking about. He's not saying, I assumed you were going to meet me at 3:00 and you showed up, so you showed up because I assumed you were going to be there. That's not it. Basically, the assumptions hardened into fact, I think, is pretty easily illustrated by just thinking about the formation of your own personality back in the day. Your identity is not something that is real. It's something that is based on, a small percentage, your own, your wiring and your innate characteristics, which are definitely real. I've personally experienced just sort of a reverting back to innate leanings, even if I have intentionally become something else. So there are things in there that are sort of you. They're characteristics of your human. But everything else is just kind of something that you decided. It's something that either you saw somebody being a certain way, you said, I like that, I'm going to try to, I want to be like that, and then you started being like that, and now you are that. For me, that's the easiest way to understand this, because for myself personally, I distinctly remember having things about myself I didn't like, seeing things about somebody else that I did like, and saying, I'm going to be like that, not like this. And just sort of adopting certain qualities, and then continuously beating the old one out of myself, reinforcing the new one until it just became me. I mean, the person talking on this video has been highly refined over the years to get rid of negative qualities and to sort of implant things that I wanted to be there that were not just naturally present or that hadn't been cultivated. And I'm sure almost everybody watching this can relate to that, at least to some degree. back in the day when you didn't think that your identity was so solid, you know, you took on a lot of things, or you listened to other people tell you what you are and just decided if they're telling you that, that must be true. You know, that's a source of a lot of the garbage personality traits that a lot of people have. You know, no confidence, no, you know, just things that like kind of mean, shitty kids told you were true about you. And then you just said, well, okay, I agree. This is now part of me. All of that stuff is up for grabs. All of that stuff can be changed. And if you assume whatever you want to be and persist in it long enough, it will become you, just like it did when you were 13. You know, think about a kid, like a, you know, 13-year-old boy. See this all the time, like with my friends' kids these days. You know, you look at a 13-year-old boy who his personality isn't like quite formed, and they see this cool older kid that like has this, you know, whatever's considered cool job for a 17-year-old kid. He drives a cool car. Like he has all like the, you know, retorts to things that I, as a 42-year-old, would kind of roll my eyes at, but the kids think is really cool. You know, the 13-year-old kid sees this older kid and he goes, I'm going to be like that. So he starts acting like that guy, and you hear him say something, you go, where did you get that? Where did you pick that up? It's like you view somebody as a kid that you think is cool. I want to be like that. And then you start acting like that. You do it long enough, it becomes you. Like you become that guy or that girl or whatever. We all do it. And it's the same thing with the things that you want to become today. You want to become successful. You take on the vibe of that successful person, persist in it long enough, it will become you. It will harden into your identity, which will produce your reality. And that is sort of the miraculous way that things change. A la Neville Goddard, and using your imagination and having some faith and all that stuff. It's not, it's not this idea that if you assume that something will happen, it just will. I suppose if you assume that something is going to happen long enough, that perhaps it will, but it's not the kind of thing where you're like, I assumed that based on evidence, I assumed that this thing was going to happen, and then it did, so I created it. We all have a million examples in our own lives of things that we expected to happen that didn't happen, that we assumed were going to happen based on all of the available evidence that then did not happen. So that simply cannot be what that means. It's been disproven by you already. So don't fall into the trap of getting sucked into these dime a dozen interpretations of these sort of major works of Neville Goddard and all of these big concepts, because nothing is quite that simple as far as I can tell in this entire genre. There's more to it than all of that. Persisting in something and it hardening into fact over time isn't something that is a one and done type of thing. I can tell you though, from my own personal experience, I made a video about this somewhere back in the beginning of this channel, but when I went from being obese to very slender, I did it pretty quickly, and I was amazed. It was absolutely shocking to me how quickly everyone forgot that I had ever been fat. Like, it just wasn't me anymore. And after I would say about 6 months, everyone, like even the closest people to me in my family, the people that were around me the most for the 10 years that I was pretty overweight, even they didn't, it was like it never happened. They treated me as though I had always been the way that I was at that moment. Like it hardened into fact, and it became reality. And people around you just simply don't have the ability to hang on to, a previous personality trait or way you used to be for very long. I mean, maybe if your close family members and friends are the types that like to hang on to stuff, maybe it'll take a little longer. But the fact is, like, you persist in something long enough, it's you. And people have to respond to what is you. And same thing, by the way, for when I went from being just like my entire 20s was basically broke, bankrupt. I could never, people just assumed if we were going out to dinner, they were paying for me, that kind of thing. That changed so fast too. I mean, I went from being broke to being one of the more well-off members of my family and friend group. And that just, I mean, literally, it took probably maybe a year before people stopped having that reaction, like, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford that, or, you know, stuff like just before they started treating me like, you know, the way that you would treat somebody who actually has a lot of money. It was so fast how rapidly people just dropped the old reaction. Like they can't react to you a way that you aren't for very long. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't, the energy equation doesn't balance out. They have to conform. Even if people try to hang on and try, you know, I think for some people that have long histories of doing bad stuff, I think it can be, you know, some people make decisions about who you are for their own self-preservation, and it can be really difficult to let that go. But you persist long enough, even they will have to come around eventually, when they are just presented with the evidence that you are somebody else for a long enough period of time. So that is what assumptions harden into fact means. And your identity creates your reality. Your identity, your beliefs about yourself, your views about yourself, your beliefs about the world, the way you see everything, that's what creates your reality. And you make a change in there and persist in it long enough, things will change. I can't tell you exactly how that will happen for you. Maybe you will change it. Maybe it will just change. But it happens every time. It's like a math equation. It's incredible how reliable this is. That the 3D will conform to you. It's, even if you can't see how that will happen, it will happen. It's a law that is largely unexplainable at this point, but it is a law, and it does work every time. So I hope that helps somebody. Have a great day.